Hello guys and welcome to this video. In this video I will be talking about investing for beginners in 2022. I will start out by talking about why it is very important that you do invest your money, and secondly I will talk about what I would personally do if I were a beginner in the stock market. I will talk about what stock it is that I would invest in. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is why it is that you should get started as soon as possible with investing. So with that being said, let's jump into it. So I want to start out by talking about the number one reason as to why it is important that you do invest your money. Number one reason is something known as inflation. If you don't know what inflation is, then don't worry because I will cover it in this video. Basically, inflation is increase in prices over time. Most likely, if you are old enough, you will notice that the products that you usually buy, they do increase in price over time. You will probably also have heard your parents or someone else say that I used to buy this product for half the price 20 years ago, and that is the true power of inflation. The inflation rate is set somewhere between 2 and 2.5% per year. This basically means that we can expect prices to increase by 2 to 2.5% every single year. What inflation basically means is that if you do take $10,000 out of your bank account and you put them under your pillow for the next 10 years, then these $10,000 would be worth less in 10 years than they are right now. So basically, you would be able to purchase less product for these $10,000 in 10 years than you are able to do today. What this means is that your money actually loses value over time, and that is why it's super important to do something about it. So basically, inflation raises the number two question, which is how can you prevent your money from losing value over time? And that is what I'm going to talk about now. When it comes to preventing your money from losing value over time, there is a few very common things that you can do to avoid it. The number one common thing is basically to put all of your money into a savings account, in a bank account. And then basically you are getting paid an interest rate for having deposited your money into this bank account. Nowadays, this interest rate is usually below 1%, which means that the interest rate you get from all of your deposits will be below 1%. When you do take into consideration that the current inflation rate is between 2 to 2.5%, well then you're actually losing money from depositing your money into a bank account. So basically, that does not work in order to hedge yourself against inflation. You have to do something else. But let's assume that it is actually possible for you to earn a fixed interest payment of 2.5% on a bank account, then you would actually have successfully hedged yourself against inflation. But even though you were able to get a 2.5% interest on your bank account, well then you're still not making any money. Basically, you are making 2.5%, which is then getting eaten by the inflation rate. So you end up with a total of 0. So basically it raises the third question of how do you actually make money? Thus far in the video we have established that in order to break even with inflation, you do need a yearly average return on your deposit or on your savings of at least 2.5%. Now, in order to answer the question number 3, which is how do you actually make money, we're going to talk about investing. Because basically investing is one way in order to beat inflation. Basically, if we do talk about stock investing, well then the stock markets have on average increased by 8% every single year. And that does include all of the larger recessions. So let's just take a moment to compare the 8% that you can potentially get from investing if you do achieve a market return in investing over time, compared to the below 1% interest rate that you do get on your deposit when you're depositing your money into a bank account. Well, then you basically see a massive difference there. But before you're going to jump in and we're going to start talking about investing, I do want to talk about some of the biggest misconceptions and misbeliefs there is when it comes to investing. One of them is that investing is risky and that you're not guaranteed to gain money from it. And that is completely true. No one can guarantee that you will make money from investing. However, you can say and you can argue that the stock market has gone up by an average of 8% per year, which means that there is a big potential for you to be able to make money in the stock market. Another misbelief within investing is that it does require a ton of money in order for you to be able to make some money in the stock market. I'm actually going to show you right now with an example where an investor has $100 to invest every single month. I'm going to show you how much money that actually can turn into by using the power that investing actually provides the investors with. So let's jump into Excel and I'll show you guys what that example is going to look like. So in order to show you guys just how powerful investing actually is, I'm going to jump into the spreadsheet that I've made here and talk you through what it is that I've actually made here. So basically we have a new investor here who basically wants to invest into the stock market. This new investor, he only has $100 every single month to put into the stock market. And he's basically arguing with himself whether this is worth it or not. I'm going to show you in this example why that is worth it to do it. So basically $100 per month is going to give you a total of $1,200 per year. In this example, he's going to buy a share that has a share price of $15 per share. This share has a yearly average return of 8%, which is actually the market return. So basically what he's buying here is the S&P 500 index that does have a average yearly return of 8%. And it also has a average dividend per year of 3%. So what we see here is that in year one, the stock price is 8%, and this investor puts $1,200 into the stock market. This will give him a total of 80 shares. The return on these 80 shares and this investment is this amount here. So basically you can see here that based on the 8%, this guy is making $96 on this investment based on the 8% return. But now this investment is also paying dividends. This investor is receiving 0.45 dividends per share. These dividends are being directly reinvested into the stock market, which means that when you get $0.45 per share and you do have 80 shares, then this is enough to buy you 2 new shares, which is what this investor does. This will now give you a combined return of $132, which is a lot higher than what we saw over here where we had the $96. And now based on 1 year in the stock market, this new investor now has a total value of $1,332, which is significantly higher than what he would have had if he put this into the bank account. But as the years goes on and this investor, he keeps on and being consistent with putting these $100 into the stock market every single month, which is a total of $1,200 per year, as we see here, then 20 years from now, by only assuming that he's going to be consistent and put the same amount of dollars into the stock market every month, all of these dollars here that he puts in will give him a total value of $62,332. Now this example is of course assuming that the stock market does increase by the same percent as it has done in history. It is also assuming that all of the dividends are being directly used in order to purchase new shares, which is something that can be done. This example is not taking tax into consideration, and tax does of course have an impact on the overall value that this investor would have. However, the tax is very, very different from country to country and from region to region, so therefore I did not decide to include this in my calculation. However, even though you were to tax this amount here, then this investment would be worth it still. It doesn't really change the fact that investing is a good idea. And when you look on the graph over here, which is basically showing the total value we have here over the years, what we see here is pretty interesting, because we do see here that sort of like the line is very flat here in the beginning, and then it sort of like starts to curve upwards the longer we get based on the years. And this is actually the power of investing. And this shows you that if you do have consistency when it comes to investing, then you get to this point here where the curve starts to slope really, really quickly upwards. And that is exactly where you want to be. So that is why that even though you only have $100 to put into the stock market every single month, or less than that, or if you have $1,000 or whatever it is, then it's going to be worth it. You don't need millions of dollars in order to become rich from investing in stocks, or for it to be worth it at all. Basically, the best advice that any investor can ever receive is that you should get started as soon as possible with investing. And that is exactly what I wanted to show you by using this spreadsheet here.